That is the fraction of all humans alive today who have green eyes, not blue eyes, which occur in roughly 8 to 10%, not brown eyes, which are carried by approximately 70 to 80% of every person on Earth. Green eyes, 2%. And yet green eyes are arguably the most studied, most written about, most mythologized eye color in human history. They appear in Persian poetry as symbols of otherworldly beauty. They are associated in Celtic folklore with magical power and connection to the spirit world. They were noted in ancient Egyptian texts as markers of foreign northern origin, and in the contemporary world, they consistently top surveys of the most attractive eye color, despite their extraordinary rarity. But what science has been asking, and what ancient DNA research has only recently begun to answer, is a different question entirely. The question science is asking is, where did they actually come from? What genetic event created the conditions for green eyes to exist? The answer involves a genetic dimmer switch, an ancient mountain range that acted as a cradle for one of the most influential populations, a Bronze Age expansion that carried green eye genetics from a specific corner of Eurasia across the entire continent and beyond, and a physics phenomenon that has nothing to do with pigment at all. This is the origin of green eyes, and it is considerably more complex and considerably more fascinating than anything the poets or the folklorists ever imagined. Before we can understand where green eyes came from, we need to understand what they actually are at the biological level. And the first thing to understand is perhaps the most counterintuitive. Green eyes contain no green pigment. None. The color you see is not produced by any pigment molecule that absorbs light and reflects green wavelengths. It is produced entirely by physics. Eye color is determined by the amount and distribution of a pigment called melanin in the iris, specifically a form called eumelanin. Brown eyes have a large amount of eumelanin in the front layer of the iris. Blue eyes have almost none, so the iris is nearly transparent, and the color is produced by Rayleigh scattering, the same physical phenomenon that makes the sky appear blue. Light entering a low melanin iris is scattered by the collagen fibers, and blue wavelengths scatter more strongly than red, producing the blue color. Green eyes occupy a specific and narrow zone between these two extremes. They have a small amount of pheomelanin, which is yellowish-brown. Combined with very low levels of eumelanin, the pheomelanin absorbs some light. The remaining light is scattered by the Rayleigh mechanism. The combination of the warm pheomelanin absorption and the blue scattering produces a color that human visual perception registers as green. The exact shade depends on the precise ratio of these components, which varies between individuals and can shift with lighting or age. This biological complexity is one of the reasons green eyes are so rare. Blue eyes require one mutation that switches off eumelanin production. Green eyes require a specific intermediate configuration. Some pheomelanin, very little eumelanin, the right collagen structure. That depends on 15 genes. Green eyes sit in a narrow biological window that very few people happen to land in. The genetic architecture behind green eyes is centered on two genes, OCA2 and HERC2, both located on chromosome 15. OCA2 encodes a protein called P protein that regulates the production and distribution of melanin in the iris. When OCA2 is fully active, it produces abundant eumelanin, and the result is brown eyes. When suppressed, less eumelanin is produced. HERC2 sits adjacent to OCA2 and acts as a regulatory switch, a gene that controls the activity of OCA2. The HERC2 switch has a range of settings. At its maximum, it keeps OCA2 running at full capacity, and the result is brown eyes. At its minimum, produced by the specific mutation that all blue-eyed people share, OCA2 is reduced to near silence. Recent research has identified that the genetic variants producing green eyes are not a single mutation, but a cluster of variants. Scientists have described this as a genetic dimmer switch. Green eyes have the switch at a specific intermediate setting. This dimmer switch metaphor is accurate but incomplete. The full genetic picture involves variants in at least 15 genes. Each gene contributes a small adjustment. The result is that green eyes are polygenic, produced by the sum of many small genetic effects. This is why they are so rare, and why they can appear in any family background if enough variants happen to come together. Green eyes are a masterclass in biological complexity and the beautiful physics of light. The geographic origin of green eyes has been one of the most discussed questions in human pigmentation genetics. For decades, the answer was imprecise, somewhere in Europe or Western Asia, sometime in the distant past. Ancient DNA research has now made that answer considerably more specific. The population that appears to have carried the highest frequencies of green eye genetic variants was the Caucasus hunter-gatherers. They inhabited the Caucasus Mountains, roughly corresponding to modern Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and parts of the North Caucasus. This occurred during the Mesolithic and early Neolithic periods, approximately 12,000 to 6,000 years ago. The Caucasus hunter-gatherers are one of three major ancestral populations that contributed to the genetic makeup of modern Europeans. The other two were the Western hunter-gatherers and the early European farmers who spread agriculture from Anatolia. The Caucasus hunter-gatherers were genetically distinct from both. They occupied a unique position at the crossroads of the ancient world. Ancient DNA studies have found elevated frequencies of the OCA2 and HERC2 variants associated with intermediate melanin levels. This configuration produces green and lighter eye colors. The genetic prerequisites were more common here than in any other ancient population. The Caucasus was, in this specific genetic sense, the cradle of green eye genetics. The region's geography offers an explanation. The mountains form a formidable barrier, creating conditions of relative isolation. The specific light environment, with high UV in summer but reduced light in winter, may have favored intermediate melanin levels. This represented an optimal balance between UV protection and visual acuity in lower light. The Caucasus hunter-gatherers did not remain isolated. Their legacy was carried across vast distances by the Yamnaya expansion. The Yamnaya were Bronze Age pastoralists who inhabited the Pontic-Caspian steppe 5,000 years ago. They were one of the first to domesticate the horse and use wheeled vehicles, giving them unprecedented mobility. They spoke an early form of Proto-Indo-European, the ancestral language of most modern European and Indian languages. Critically, the Yamnaya were genetically a mixture of Eastern European hunter-gatherers and Caucasus hunter-gatherers. That Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry is the key. The Yamnaya carried the green eye genetic variants over thousands of years. When the Yamnaya expanded westward into Europe and eastward across Central Asia, they carried these genetic variants with them. The demographic impact on Europe was enormous. Yamnaya-related ancestry contributed 50% of modern Northern and Central Europeans. This explains why lighter eye colors, including green, are concentrated in the populations that descend from the Yamnaya. The eastward expansion explains green eyes in unexpected places. The Kalash of Pakistan have fascinated outsiders for centuries. The Pashtun people of Afghanistan and Central Asian populations from Kazakhstan to Iran show similar frequencies. These eyes reflect the same ancient Yamnaya genetic legacy. The global distribution of green eyes today is essentially a map of the reach of the ancient Yamnaya expansion and its genetic predecessors. Green eyes are most common in Ireland and Scotland, where they occur in approximately 25 to 30% of the population. This is far higher than the global average of 2%. This concentration reflects the strong Yamnaya-related steppe ancestry that characterizes populations of the British Isles, combined with high Western hunter-gatherer ancestry. Ireland and Scotland were among the regions where the genetic mixing of incoming Yamnaya-related populations with existing European hunter-gatherers was most extensive. The specific combination appears to have produced particularly high green eye frequencies. Across Central and Northern Europe, green eye frequencies decline but remain significantly above the global average. In Germany, approximately 15% of the population has green eyes. In France, the rate is slightly lower. In Southern Europe, Italy, Greece, Spain, green eyes are less common but not rare. This reflects the lower proportion of Yamnaya-related ancestry in these populations relative to Anatolian farmer ancestry. In the Caucasus region itself, the original homeland of the population responsible for green eye frequency globally, green eyes remain unusually common. Georgians, Armenians, and various peoples of the North Caucasus show green eye rates significantly above the global average. This reflects the deep connection to the ancient Caucasus hunter-gatherer genetic pool that has persisted in the region for thousands of years. In East Asia, green eyes are extremely rare, except in populations with documented Yamnaya-related ancestry. The Han Chinese, Japanese, and Korean populations have very low green eye frequencies because the Yamnaya expansion did not significantly reach these regions. Where green eyes do appear in East Asia, they almost invariably reflect recent admixture with populations of Central Asian or European origin. In sub-Saharan Africa, green eyes are essentially absent in populations without recent admixture from European or Middle Eastern sources. Africa is the region where our species originated and where the original brown-eyed configuration of human iris melanin was established. The Caucasus hunter-gatherer ancestry that underlies green eye genetics in Eurasia has no significant representation in sub-Saharan African populations. If green eyes require such a specific and unlikely genetic configuration to arise, why have they persisted at the frequencies we see today? Random genetic drift, the chance accumulation of variants in small populations, can explain some of it. But the concentrations we see in specific populations suggest that selection may also have played a role. A landmark study of ancient DNA, published in 2015, identified a strong positive selection signal at the HERC2 OCA2 locus in ancient European populations. The statistics were unambiguous. Something was actively favoring lighter eye colors in ancient Europeans. Two main hypotheses exist for what that selection pressure might have been. The first is vitamin D synthesis. In northern latitudes with limited sunlight, reduced melanin in the skin and eyes allows more UV radiation to penetrate. This enhances the synthesis of vitamin D from sunlight. Populations moving into the low-light environments of northern Europe may have been selected for reduced pigmentation across the board. Green eyes represent an intermediate step in the depigmentation of eye color from the original brown. The second hypothesis is sexual selection. Research has consistently found that unusual or striking eye colors are rated as more attractive than common ones. In populations where brown eyes were the norm, green eyes would have been visually distinctive and associated with genetic uniqueness. A consistent preference for green-eyed partners over many generations could produce a measurable increase in green eye frequency. Most researchers believe both mechanisms operated simultaneously and reinforced each other. The result is the distribution of green eyes we see today, concentrated in populations descended from the Yamnaya expansion, where both selection pressures were strongest. The cultural history of green eyes runs remarkably parallel to the genetic history. The peoples who wrote most extensively about green eyes were precisely those living near the regions of highest green eye frequency. In ancient Persia, which controlled much of the Caucasus, green eyes appear repeatedly in classical poetry as the defining feature of idealized beauty. The medieval Persian poet Rumi, the epic poet Ferdowsi, and numerous others use green eyes as a shorthand for otherworldly attractiveness. The Persian word for green, sabz, appears in descriptions of beautiful eyes across centuries of classical literature. In Celtic cultures, green eyes were associated with magical ability and a connection to the fairy world. This may reflect the genuine rarity and striking visual impact of green eyes in a population where they were less common than today. In ancient Egypt, green eyes were sufficiently unusual to be specifically noted in texts as a marker of northern or northeastern origin. Artistic representations of people from the northern regions, like the Levant and Anatolia, often depicted lighter eyes than the standard Egyptian brown. The cross-cultural association of green eyes with foreignness reflects a genetic reality. They were unusual enough to be remarkable. If you have green eyes, what does the science tell you about your ancestry? Green eyes are a polygenic trait, influenced by at least 15 genes, providing ancestral information like a signal, not a proof. If you have European ancestry, you likely carry the Yamnaya-related steppe ancestry that brought these genetics from the Caucasus 5,000 years ago. You may also carry elevated levels of Western hunter-gatherer ancestry that interacted with the Yamnaya to produce high-frequency green eyes. If your ancestry is from the Caucasus, you may carry one of the oldest concentrations of green eye genetics on Earth. Your eyes may trace back to the Caucasus hunter-gatherer populations who inhabited those mountains thousands of years before the Bronze Age. For those with South or Central Asian ancestry, green eyes are a legacy of the eastward branch of the Yamnaya expansion. Whether in Afghanistan or the Kazakh steppe, your eyes connect you to ancient mountain populations through a 5,000-year-old migration. Only 2% of the world's population carries this genetic dimmer switch, set by the interaction of at least 15 genes. The origin of green eyes stretches from the physics of light scattering to the ancient steppes of Eurasia. It is a story written in the DNA of the 2% who carry it, and in the cultural records of every civilization. Subscribe to Hidden Origins, because the rarest things always have the deepest stories. Drop a comment. Do you have green eyes? And did knowing their origin change how you see them? We want to know.